10. One dead jogger. A farmer in Arkansas has confessed to running down a jogger with his pickup truck, having his way with her, killing her, and then dumping her body as if she were just a piece of trash. His name is Quake Llewellyn, and he might just be one of the worst people to have ever existed. This vicious slaying happened back in August of 2021, but Quake had to be looked at by a psychologist so that he could be ruled competent to face the charges placed against him. And according to the forensic psychologist, Quake Llewellyn was not affected by any mental disease at the time of the alleged conduct. What this means is that he was fully aware of what he was doing, and he did it maliciously and with intent. But just who is this crazy farmer who killed a perfectly innocent jogger? Quake is a 28-year-old loner, divorced from his wife and living a sad existence. He ran over Sydney Sutherland with a truck as she was jogging near his small farm in Jackson County. At first, he claimed it was an accident. After he accidentally hit her with his truck, he first told the police that he walked over and asked if she was okay. When she didn't respond, he thought she was dead. He then put her in the tailgate of his truck, drove into a rice field, dug a hole, tore her clothes off, and got real weird, and then disposed of her. He went home and had dinner by himself and went to sleep. The next day, he started working at the farm just like any other day. Believe it or not, the lonely divorced man may have gotten away with the crime, except that when the police came to question him, he spilled the beans and confessed the whole thing, although he tried to frame it like an accident. He wasn't counting on the Arkansas State Crime Lab determining Sydney had not been accidentally killed with his car, but intentionally murdered. 9. Murder in South Africa. Farming in South Africa is one of the most dangerous businesses to be involved in. It's quite a bit complicated history-wise, but here's the gist of it. In South Africa, back during apartheid, white South Africans did all of the farming. They owned all the farms and all the property. All these years later, with apartheid abolished, white people still own the majority of the farmland in South Africa. A lot of people aren't too happy about this, and so there have been a string of violent assaults and murders in the last few years on rural farmers. One of the more violent recent attacks came on a female worker who was violated and then strangled to death while working her own land east of Johannesburg. 2 armed men ambushed Chantel Kershaw, ripped her underwear off and stuffed them into her mouth, then dragged her inside her own garage where she was killed. It was absolutely horrendous. In a separate incident that happened just 2 days later, 21-year-old farmer Brendan Horner was attacked in Paul Rue, Free State Province, while trying to work on his farm. He's actually the farm manager, but was attacked by a group of men who tortured Brendan in ways so horrific I can't even repeat them. His dead body was then tied to a post and left outside the farm like some disgusting totem from the days when Vlad Tempes still impaled people on spikes. 8. The Iowa pig farmer. The Iowa pig farmer who murdered his wife with a corn rake has been handed down a sentence of life in prison. Todd M. Mullis of Earlville was sentenced by Iowa District County Judge Thomas Bitter for the brutal first-degree murder of Amy Mullis on their farm in November of 2018. According to what prosecutors said, Todd got into a horrible rage over an extramarital affair that his wife was having. She was cheating on him and she wanted a divorce. So he picked up a corn rake and impaled her with it. Throughout the trial, Todd maintained his innocence. But there was really no way he was getting around this one. The attorney representing justice for the slain wife even argued that Todd had been thinking about killing Amy for years. The couple got married in 2004, but they were never really all that happy. Plus, it wasn't like Todd could say it was an accident or blame the murder on somebody else. The forensic pathologist testified that Amy was impaled at least twice, but possibly 3 times. She also suffered injuries to her face and hands as if she had been trying to fend somebody off. and seeing as it was just Farmer Todd and his wife that day, it couldn't possibly have been anyone else. 7. Killer tobacco farmer. Christmas of 1929 was not a joyous occasion in North Carolina. A tobacco farmer on this day in history murdered his wife and all 6 of their children, including their tiny infant daughter. On Christmas Day, Marie Lawson woke up early to blend butter and sugar in preparation for her signature holiday dessert. While her cake was cooling, her dad was behind the tobacco barn slaughtering 2 of her sisters. She had no idea. Marie kept herself busy in the kitchen as if nothing terrible was about to happen. Charles Davis Lawson, her own father, then snuck up behind Marie and killed her too. Nobody ever did get to eat her signature holiday dessert. This case has boggled historians for nearly a century. Nobody knows why a seemingly ordinary tobacco farmer broke down and murdered his entire family. In 1927, 2 years before, Charlie had finally accumulated enough money to buy a piece of land, move into the farmhouse there, and grow tobacco. Everything was looking up. But during renovations on the new property, Charlie apparently hit himself in the head with an axe. Ever since then, his temper started growing out of control, and he began acting erratic. Within just a few months of hitting himself in the face by accident, he went so completely insane that he bludgeoned, shot, and tore apart his whole family. Even the youngest member, Mary Lou, who was only 4 months old, was violently beaten to a bloody pulp. Why do you think Charlie Davis Lawson went completely insane and murdered his family? Do you really think a bump on the head can turn you from being a normal person into a crazy maniac? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. 6. The Canadian pig farmer. Robert Pickton is one of the worst serial killers in history, but you've probably never even heard of him. Maybe it's because he hails from Canada, where people don't typically think serial killers exist. Or maybe it's because he's just not as flamboyant and exciting as people like Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer. But he's actually worse than both of them put together, and he's still alive right now. Robert was only born in 1949. He's currently 72 years old and living in Port Coquitlam, British Columbia. He dropped out of school to work at his family pig farm. Then, in the 1980s, after he inherited the farm and there was nobody left to see what was going on, he set off on a quest to kill 50 women. And he got very, very close. He was arrested in 2002 and convicted of killing 6 women. But it came out that he had actually killed 49. The pig farmer traveled from his rural property into the city of Vancouver, where he picked up prostitutes and paid them to go back to his farm. But when they got back to his farm, they never left. He would stab them repeatedly, torture them in some pretty sick ways, and then feed their corpses to his pigs. 5. A fatal abduction. Molly Tibbetts was 20 years old when she was found dead in an Iowa cornfield. Molly was a student of psychology at the University of Iowa. She was hoping to get her doctorate degree and go on to write books, but those dreams came to a harsh and violent end. Molly vanished after going for a run near Yarrabee Farms, a dairy farm where Christian Bahina Rivera had been working for about 4 years. He was an undocumented immigrant who had been living in the USA and working on the farm illegally. In an interview with police in August of 2018, he admitted that he saw Molly Tibbetts while she was out for her evening run. He also admitted that when he saw her, she was so young and beautiful that he got extremely angry and blacked out. This is what he said in his defense, that he blacked out and didn't remember anything that happened. When he finally woke up from his fugue, he claimed Molly was in the trunk of his car and bleeding to death, so he buried her in a remote cornfield. Well, the jury wasn't buying any of it. The illegal farmer was found guilty of first-degree murder and will likely spend the remainder of his life locked up in prison. 4. The farmer's wife. A farmer's wife has been found guilty of murdering her husband. This time it wasn't actually the farmer who did the killing, but his very own bride. His wife and her new lover had been plotting the twisted torture and murder of William Taylor for months before they finally went through with it. Angela Taylor, the wife, and her boyfriend Paul Cannon reportedly shared a deep hatred for the farmer. Angela, over 20 years younger than William, desperately wanted a divorce, but William wasn't having it. He had just turned 70 and had already been married to this woman for 2 decades. He wasn't interested in a divorce. Several months later, his skeleton was found in a swamp of mud by a passing fisherman near his farm. The corpse was so decomposed that forensics experts told the St. Albans Crown Court there was no way to determine the cause of death. But that didn't stop the murderers from being convicted. The police were able to go through text messages that showed how the couple had conspired to brutally kill the farmer. Some of these messages included discussions of bizarre fantasies, like showering together in his blood as they cut his fingers off one by one. 3. Too much gossip. A farmer in Nigeria has been sentenced to spend the rest of his life in prison for killing his cousin. The murderer is Michael Awije, a farmer his entire life. He went into hiding after he got in a fight in July of 2021 with his cousin Emmanuel. Michael hit him so hard that his head snapped around and he died. After Michael was apprehended by the police, he admitted what he did and even said he was terribly sorry. It was just one of those things that happened in the heat of the moment. He had grown up together with Emmanuel, the cousin he beat to death. And everything was great until a few months ago when his cousin started spreading rumors. He said that Michael wasn't being a very good farmer. The rumors became such a big problem that Michael's clients didn't trust him anymore. His contractors were insisting that he finish all the work before he could even think about getting paid. And it was all because of the nasty rumors. In the world of farming, this kind of thing can ruin a person's life. But then again, so can beating your cousin to death. When Michael confronted his cousin and demanded he stop spreading rumors, his cousin refused. So Michael hit him until he stopped breathing. 2. The first mass murderer. Farmer Andrew Kehoe was the very first mass murderer in American history. The horror began on a quiet day in Michigan, May of 1927. Her niece Sterling, the local first-grade teacher, asked Andrew if the students can have a picnic on his farm to celebrate the last day of school. Andrew agreed but insisted that the children go immediately to his farm for the picnic so that they could enjoy the beautiful sunny day. But let's back it up a bit before the big finale. Andrew, at this point, had a pretty miserable life. He was missing mortgage payments. His sick wife's hospital bills were piling up. He had recently suffered a pair of indignities after losing local elections, and he was served a foreclosure notice for his property. For all his misery, he blamed the town of Bath, where he lived. He also blamed the superintendent of the school, Emery Huick, who had become his mortal enemy. Before Bernice even asked Andrew to host the picnic for the children at the school, he had already been planning revenge against the town that he believed wronged him. He had accumulated hundreds of pounds of dynamite and gasoline, since there was lots of it left behind from World War I. He then used his status as the handyman of the local school to creep around at night. He wrapped thousands of pounds of bombs inside the school, hiding the explosives in wire mesh and plaster. The day of the picnic, Andrew killed his sick wife by bludgeoning her in the head. He then allowed the children to have an awesome day of picnicking on his property before they went back to school, and he hit the switch and blew it up. The explosion killed 38 students and 6 adults. He then went back to his own house, which he had also rigged with dynamite. and blew it to pieces. It was the biggest murder of children on a U.S. campus in history, even to this day. 1. Truffle thief. In France, a farmer has been sent to jail for killing a suspected truffle thief. His name is Laurent Rambaud, and he has received 8 years in jail for shooting a man who he thought was stealing his precious truffles. The shooting came after Laurent had grown increasingly irritated with a string of thefts from his farm. Then on the night of December 20th, he went out into his farm fields in the dark with a shotgun. That was when he found Ernest Pardo, a well-known truffle hunter, out walking with his dog. Laurent immediately assumed Ernest was hunting for his truffles, so he fired 2 shots. The man dropped dead from a great big hole in his chest. If you're not sure what a truffle is, let me explain. Truffles are fungi found on the roots of trees, kind of like mushrooms. They are a delicacy in France and are used as ingredients in all kinds of fancy foods. It's about $1,000 or more for 2 pounds of truffles. And now you can see why the French farmer shot the suspected thief. Laurent thought he was roaming across his property, stealing money right out of the ground. Why do you think so many farmers turn into savage murderers? Let us know your theories in the comments, and thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe for more of the craziest videos from the internet, and come back soon. See you next time. Bye.